Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing very well. My name is Carrow Brown. I am an urban fantasy author and a tarot card enthusiast, and I'm here today to talk about the Nightmare Before Christmas tarot deck. I pre-ordered this like months and months ago, and I got a delightful surprise on actually the day that one of my books got published when this came into the mail, but we're not here to talk about me, we're here to talk about this deck. So, for those of you who don't know, I am a really big fan of the Nightmare Before Christmas IP. I really like everything about it. I love the songs, I love the movie. If I gotta get some plushies in this office at some point, but I'm really big fan of this. So when the tarot deck thing got announced, I was like, yeah, of course I'm gonna buy that. Now, I've already opened it and I've already kind of gone through the deck, so the first impression thing is not going to be here. So if you were kind of here for that, sorry friends, not going to do it. But I am going to review the deck and I am going to talk about some pros and cons with it. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, the very first pro is the fact that this deck comes in a condensed box, and this box is actually pretty hardy, and I can tell you that because the people who delivered it to me were pretty rough with my deck. You can see kind of here where it got scuffed and where it got banged up a little bit, and while that does irk me a little bit that my package got very roughly handled by the delivery people, I am very happy to report that this box does in fact keep your stuff safe. So major pro, and I always like it when decks come in boxes like this. In fact, I really like that a lot of people are picking up on the fact that these are more coveted than the giant big box thing that nobody actually uses, because these are more mobile. So anyway, box is good stuff. I really like it. Hardy leather, obviously it protects my stuff. So the deck does come with all 78 cards, and it does come with a companion book, and I got a chance to go through this companion book, and I have to say, very well done. In terms of what tarot is, how it's used, and it also goes into a lot of, well, I'm not going to say it goes into a lot of depth about what the cards are, but it does. I really do like this format of having the picture and then the description, but it does kind of give you a summary of it. It talks about the upright, and then it talks about the reverse or the inverse meanings, and I haven't seen any of these meanings that were counteractive to what my experience with the cards are, so there is that. The art style is very uniform, so I don't have to sit here and wonder about like what 78 different artists' interpretation of a card are. But I do really like it a lot, and it also, for those of you who are interested, it does actually talk about how to do tarot readings here in the back. It talks about, caring for the deck. It does basically all the stuff that I really would like a book to do. One of the things I think that would actually strengthen this, although it's not a deal breaker for me, is if they actually had the keywords in here, but it's not a big deal, and I really do like a lot of the depictions here. And sometimes even if the actual card meaning doesn't correlate with the traditional meaning of the tarot itself, for the IP it matches up really well. And it's really easy for me to make the correlation between the cards and the card meaning, because like I said, I'm a really big fan of this IP, and if you found your way to my channel and you haven't actually seen this movie yet, please take a moment to pause and go watch the movie. I think it's a classic. I think it's wonderful, and it's just, there's a lot of wholesome goodness in it that I really do enjoy, and it's got skulls, and I really like skulls. So anyway, enough about the book. Let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the card. So first thing, I really do like the backs of the cards, just because I'm not a fan of knowing if a card is upright or inverse from the back of the card, so this is pretty uniform. You're not going to know one way or another. The art style, as I mentioned before, is very consistent with what goes on. You will run into a couple of things, such as right here, where in the traditional tarot it will make a lot more sense, but here you may struggle with it a little bit. So for example, we have the 7 of Potions here, which for some people means what? If you said it is about basically visualizing and fantasizing about things that you want, you're pretty on point. But although when you look at this, it may not be quite clear. Now, one thing I should probably point out is that these cups are, or I say the cups, but these suits are not quite the same. So we have potions, we've got presents, we have, where is it? We got needles. Let me put them all right there for you. And then we also have, let me find it. And then we have candles. So that's going to be a big change that you're going to notice in the suite, or the suit. I always want to say suite. In the suits themselves. So your potions are going to be your cups, your presents are going to be your coins, your needles are going to be your swords, and your candles are going to be your wands, staffs, whatever you like to call all those individual things. In some cases, such as this one right here, where you've got the 10 of candles, you will see that there are some depictions where it's just a candle opener and some candles, but I can verify that the book itself does go ahead and tell you exactly what that is. And that's probably going to be the one con that I have seen with this deck so far, is that the art style does not always depict the traditional meanings, but the book does kind of cover it. So, I mean, pro con, I'm just a big fan of being able to look at the card and know immediately what it is versus having to like pause and think about it. Because if I wanted to do that, I'd use the Arcana deck, but again, nah. But these images really do match up with the movie and the situations very well. So for example, right here with the 8 of Needles, you've got Sally who's sewing her arm back together after she kind of fell apart, and that's her kind of, you know, taking herself out of a situation she didn't want to be in and making the most of it. So there's that. You got the King of Needles with the Doctor, and he's definitely appropriate for the King of Needles. That works very well for him. Very intellectual person, very authoritative, and very self-driven in that sense, but, you know, blah, blah, blah. Page of Needles, super appropriate, because it's got all the kids in there from the Boogie Boys, and that's always fun. And then Knight of Potions, also applicable, although you don't really see this particular character with a lot of speaking parts. It does fit with him really well. So earlier I said that some of these cards really don't really depict the meaning of what they represent at all, and I just kind of wanted to show you guys a little bit of what I'm talking about right here. So there are some cards, for example, where you see like the 4 of Needles, and this is supposed to be about rest and relaxation, but when you first look at this, you're not gonna pick that up. Same thing here with the 7 of Needles. What does that mean? Well, I know that this is actually supposed to depict theft, but how do you get that from looking at the layout of the needles? So you guys see what I'm talking about here a little bit. There's a little bit of that. Candles, I think, is probably the most notorious one for what I'm talking about, because you got your candles. I don't know what they mean. I don't know what they're there for. Maybe I can have a correlation between this character and those. Maybe this does not depict about to set off on a journey or anything like that. And I got the 5 of Candles, or the 6 of Candles, and that means exactly what? I don't know. I'd have to go get the book for that. So in terms of if I would say that this deck is new person friendly, the answer is going to be no. Because even with my understanding of the movie and tarot, I'd have to go and look at the companion book to make sure that I'm interpreting these cards correctly. And in some cases, such as Pentacles right here, I know this is supposed to be, I guess it is kind of talking about family and completion a little bit, but I don't know. I'm a little on the fence about that. And then, again, Potions is pretty notorious for doing this as well. So I definitely know that this is supposed to be a big family card, but I would not make that correlation by looking at that. So, again, not new person friendly, but if you don't mind having to look at the companion book every so often in order to make the correlation between the meaning and everything else, then that's totally fine. Then you're good to go. So there's that. Now I do want to talk about some cards that I think are really fantastically done, because I kind of harped on the cards a little bit, so I want to give some love to them too. So these right here are some of my favorite cards in the deck, and there are a few more, but again, if you haven't seen the movie, there are kind of spoiler scenes, and I don't want to ruin it too much for anybody who hasn't seen it, but these are some of my favorite cards in this deck with the way that they're depicted. You've got Jack and Zero off, basically going towards the doors. You've got Jack doing his reflection and contemplating of life and trying to figure out where he needs to go, and he's trusting his instinct. You've got Zero doing his Zero thing midway through the movie. You've got the mayor upholding traditions and being the spokesperson and the authority figure of the town. Then you got Sally being the high priestess, and these are all very fitting. I really do like how they took the movie and adapted it to the cards, and there's some very iconic moments that do happen in the movie that you do see in the cards. I just don't want to completely share those with you guys here, but I really like this deck. I know I had some minor gripes about some of the depictions with a few of the cards, but I would say that if you are a fan of the IP and you do like tarot, that this is definitely something that you can pursue buying. So that's my review of the deck. I really do like it. I think it's a good buy, and I would recommend it to anybody. If you are a person and you happen to use various decks when you're doing client readings or anything like that, just make sure that you have the book handy, not for yourself, but maybe for your client as well, because like I said, some of those cards where they don't have clear illustrations about what those meanings are can cause some confusion with your client, and usually we all know that when people come to see somebody for a tarot reading, they're not there because they're just having a good day. They've usually got a problem or concern, and unsettling them is not something that you want to do. And so make sure that you have that book there, and do make sure that if you do run into one of those cards with a vague depiction of the actual meaning, that you do take the time to kind of dive into the explanation and make sure that your client is fully understanding of what the cards mean in that particular spread that you're doing. So but yeah, so again, Annie, like I said earlier, this box is pretty freaking hardy. So there's that going for it too. But that's pretty much it. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I did not talk about card quality. It's normally like the first thing I talk about in all the films, or not the films, but in all my reviews, and I totally didn't do it. I think it's because this is The Nightmare Before Christmas, and everything else that I totally missed doing it. So for those of you who like to know these things, first off, this card has a semi-matte finish on it, so if you are somebody who does not like fingerprints, that is definitely something you don't have to worry about. And the nice thing about semi-matte is that it does not cause your cards to stick together or drag, which I am not a fan of, so you can still shuffle them pretty well. Cards are very flexible, they are bendy, so if you like to riffle shuffle, you can still do that. And I will warn you guys that this is on white cardstock, and the outside is sealed to protect it from wear and tear, but if you reach the point where you do kind of use these cards a lot, it is going to start looking a little raggedy because this is a black border on white cardstock. And from my experience, if you want to make your cards look like they are 10 years older, that is the fastest way to do it. But hopefully with that seal that they have on the outside, you don't have to worry about that so much. So that actually concludes my review of this deck. Good card quality. I think it's a really good deck. Just make sure that you have some serious client care with some of those cards, and you should be good to go. If I have not covered something that you are very curious to know about this deck, please feel free to leave a question down below. I will clarify all that. But that's going to be it for my review. Thank you guys so much for listening about my review about this Nightmare Before Christmas deck, and I will talk to you all again real soon.